everyone, and welcome to Season 3, Episode 3 of Dogs Unknown. I'm Sarah Fraser, joined by fellow host Brian Burton, and we are also joined today by part owner of Instinct St. Louis, Megan Ores-Uhrich. So super excited to have Megan on the call today. Megan's the behavior consultant who brings tons of knowledge to the table. We are talking today about being on the struggle bus and everything that involves being on the struggle bus, how it feels, how to get off, how to navigate interactions with friends and family and well-intentioned strangers when you're navigating being on the struggle bus with your dog. And when we say being on the struggle bus, it really can be struggling with any aspect of your dog's behavior or your relationship or your life together. It might be struggling with a new puppy and you know, working through all the challenges of house training and crate training and everything that comes along with it. Or it might be a recently adopted rescue dog or an adult dog you've had since puppyhood who's showing some behavior issues. And it can be a real challenge from an emotional standpoint, in addition to just the straight up sort of training and behavior modification protocols that you might be working through and everything that involves. So we wanted to do this episode to get today and talk about our own personal experiences with being on the struggle bus with some of our dogs and share our best sort of advice and thoughts about how to make that ride a little less volatile and scary and how to get yourself off into a better, more peaceful place with your dog.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something that, you know, I feel like doesn't get talked about a whole lot, you know, either like in our industry or even just people when they're going through it, just because it can be embarrassing. It can be, people can feel shame. And so, yeah, so this episode today is for all of you out there who feel like you're on it. And I really sincerely hope you'll get a lot out of it, because you're definitely not alone. If you're on the struggle bus, you are not alone. And especially in today's world with social media clips and, you know, there's a million dog training videos or behavior videos or puppy videos. And it feels like, it seems like it's pretty simple and pretty straightforward. The reality is, while we can always make tons of progress, the reality is that it can be a windy, bumpy road with lots of ups and downs. And so hopefully, at least for me coming out of today, if people can sort of realize that it's part of the journey is the struggle bus, right? Like for so many people, that is going to be part of your journey, and it's sort of how we respond to it and understand it is really the key thing. So yeah, I'm really hoping we get that out of today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I would love to start with that from the lens of how important it is in these situations when you find yourself on the struggle bus to, you know, our inclination, our first instinct is to kind of want to grip tighter and get control as fast as we can, you know, and quote unquote, fix the dog, right? That's sort of how we approach being on the struggle bus. Our default is I need to fix my dog to get back to where we were or to get to some idealized better spot that you have in your head. And what's really important is to get curious and start to figure out, what does my dog need from me right now for us to both get to a better spot. And I think one of the hardest things for people to do when you find yourself in this situation, and I even want to say, whether it's what we view as like sort of what we even might view as trainers as sort of like quote unquote normal stuff developmentally and age wise, can still feel really hard and can still be really hard and scary. Absolutely. And frustrating. And you can still be on the struggle bus, you know, whether it's developmentally normal sort of typical appropriate behavior, or whether it's something a little bit more atypical and more challenging. I don't want to say challenging, but just abnormal or atypical. I think you can still very, very much ride on the struggle bus together. Yeah. So I think that's one thing. What I would say as well is, I think to that point of, it's really hard if you find yourself in a situation with a puppy or with an adolescent or with an adult dog or with a senior dog to not almost fixate on some point in the past or some vision you have that you've created before you ever got your dog in the first place.
Absolutely.
And just fixate on like, I just need to get to there and everything will be fine. And that part about being curious is just like, I really need to take a step back, which is so hard, and say, who are you and what do you need from me right now for us to move forward together? right? Like, who are you as an adolescent, like as an 8-month-old cattle dog, not who were you as a 9-month-old roly-poly cattle dog puppy? Who
Absolutely.
are you right now? What might be playing into those changes? Is it age related? Do you have something medical going on? Have I moved recently, or did I welcome a new roommate into the fold? You know, like really get curious and say, who are you now and what might be contributing to what I'm seeing? And let go of that fixed vision of the past or some imaginary future dog that you've created. Because you're not always, you can't get back to there quite often because they've changed and evolved and grown.
Absolutely.
And the dog that you created in your head of who they were going to grow up to be
doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist. Never existed. They certainly don't know about that. They didn't get the memo.
You know, none of us get dogs because we want them to have behavior problems.
Right.
None of us. No, I mean, maybe 1%. I don't know. We really kind of, I think, hope that our dog won't have struggles. And I think that is part of being in love with an animal is you don't want that for anyone you love.
Yeah.
And so the reality is there's all sorts of reason why behavior changes and why behavior issues show up, and it doesn't define the dog.
Yeah.
It also doesn't define you as an owner.
Well, I think that's
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's what I want to get at, because that whole get control piece, in my experience, getting control, there can be different motivators for that. So one motivator can be it feels dangerous or it feels scary or I'm going to get pulled over. And like, to be perfectly honest, like it's a very reasonable reason to want to seek control.
Yes.
Right. And safety reasons. And
that's like the best reason.
Yeah. Now, what most people think that means is we need to like stop the behavior or
by almost any means necessary.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the good news is there's 1,000 different ways that we can make things safer for the dog, for the human, while we're working on to help the dog through these particular issues. So if you feel like you're doing it because like you need to create safety either for yourself or for the dog or for the community, I'm with you. Like I totally recognize that. And I understand the urge to fix that at any means necessary. The thing you have to be careful of, though, is if you go down that path and you try to just sort of force that outcome, like you can create a lot more issues in the long run and also impact the welfare of your dog. But for anyone listening, if you feel like that, there's no judgment. In fact, I sort of commend you for wanting to make things safer.
Yeah. And truthfully, if you're calling in a behavior consultant, that's often one of the first things they're going to focus on helping you do. How do we make sure everyone is safe?
Yes.
But what we're going to typically do with that is going to use things like adjusting the environment or the routines or maybe switching up equipment to make it easier for you to hang on to your dog, depending on what the situation is, versus all the attention being focused on how do I sort of suppress and shut down that behavior immediately, or put it on the dog to do that themselves.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. So that's one motivator for that. I think the other reason why people want to get control is because they feel like their dog's quality of life is being impacted. And that's the same point I just spoke about. I also feel like there are owners that we work with. And I think I feel this way because I was one of those owners where in our early days, in our 20s, when we were first learning dog training, a long time ago now. But I felt like it was a reflection on me.
It's ego.
It's ego, 100%. Like when I think about Sammy, who, like, to be perfectly honest, my favorite dog I ever had. Still barely talk about him. It's hard to talk about him. Love that dog. But what he taught me, like if I think about that, it was, I did honestly felt like it was a reflection on me because he was a little leash reactive and because we were new trainers. And that can be like you just moved to a new building. You just went through a co-op board interview and your dog starts lunging and barking, or, you know, it's people at the dog park, or it's friends and family. And it's like a reflection on you. So you kind of want to get that control. And that's sort of the other reason why people want to do it. And I think what's really important, like when I talk to owners who really want to get that control, is help me understand why you want to get that control from a no judgment perspective. Because if it's about safety and danger and those types of things, there's lots of things we can do. If it's something where you feel like it's a reflection on you, we need to have a discussion about why do you have those feelings? And is that, it's every, feelings are valid, but also like we really need to examine that. And then if that is the case, that is where we need to shift people into being curious, because what's really important is if you're on the struggle bus, it's usually because your dog is telling you something about how they're feeling, what's going on in the environment, what's going on in the relationship. And if you can get curious about it, then you can actually pick something to move forward, or pick things or do things to move forward, to not only improve things for you and hopefully improve the life of your dog, and you can move forward together. So that's sort of the pieces I wanted to add there.
I think it's really well said. And I think it's kind of freeing too, in a way, because it's a lot easier then you're not stuck in this sort of mode. And I don't mean this in a bad way, or it may come out the wrong way, but like, I feel like otherwise you can get stuck in this mode of like, why is my dog doing this to me?
Yes.
Like, because it has such a heavy impact on you, and because
Absolutely.
you are getting flack from your friends and your family. And so there can be this resentment almost, and like there can be a lot of blame heaped on. There's like, that can be the feeling that you're left with. And if you're able to shift that aside and say like, really, your dog's doing their best. They're doing their best.
There's this idea that, a lot of this, and I think we all agree, is old thinking that dogs are intentionally doing these things.
And I would say like, oh, sorry, Brian, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I think I was going to say too, and if anyone has those views, I would even challenge, like, I don't even know if it's old thing. I think it's commonplace thinking to assume that like a dog, if you have a dog, to be a responsible dog owner, your dog should be obedient.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. Like that is the default assumption.
Absolutely.
By folks who've had dogs their whole lives, or folks who are just getting a new dog. That's really common.
That's a good dog.
That's the default view. Yeah. Of like, and that's what makes you a good, responsible dog owner.
Right.
Right. Like you are viewed through the lens of how well your dog listens to you. And I'm not going to say like, it's great to teach your dog to be listen and be responsive, because it gives them more freedom, right? It lets them do way more stuff with you. So I don't mean to suggest that we shouldn't teach our dogs how to do things, but I understand why people feel so much external and then internal pressure to get that control.
Yeah.
Like as you were initially saying. So I think with that being said, so there's like the impulse to want to get control of a situation really quickly is super normal. If it's safety related, we do need to help get control over the situation so that folks are safe. That looks different than a lot of times what people expect it will look like. Getting curious about why might this behavior be happening? Who is my dog right now? And a lot of times you might need help with getting curious, right? You might be like, great, I'm curious, but I still have no idea why we're in this situation. And that's where someone like a behavior consultant can really help with looking through what are those variables. I think once you've done that, then we started to touch on this already, but like it is really important when you're on the struggle bus to be very kind to yourself and remove guilt and blame and heaping this all on you.
Yes.
You are an important part of that relationship. Your dog is a dependent family member. They do depend on you to move forward and to help them move forward. So you're a hugely important part of the picture, but this is not your fault. And I think we often say to folks, like, you could have done the exact same things you're doing right now with 9 other dogs and have found yourself in a completely different situation with each one.
Exactly.
Truthfully, because they're all different dogs. And I get it with the guilt and the blame, because there's external forces pushing that on you as well. Plus internally, we love our dogs. We want to be good dog owners. We want to do a good job. So when we find them struggling, it's natural that we just blame ourselves, right? It's my fault. I did something wrong. It was that one time I took him on too long of a walk and a loud noise happened. Like we find reasons and rationalizations for why this is our fault. I think it's really important to try to remove that. And with us who do this all the time, we know like it's before your dog is even born, there are factors playing into their behavior, right?
Yes.
Like it's straight up just genetics, but like, what was their prenatal environment like? Like, how did their mom feel when she was pregnant? Like, what was their early learning environment like? What's their health? How old are they? Like, what life stage are they in? How busy is your environment? What are just their unique personal quirks that make them them? There's so much. that goes into it that's outside of our control to say, who are you as a being?
Yeah.
All we can do is say, let me get to know you as a being and help you move forward.
Yeah. And it's honestly a little scary when you first get to that realization, I feel like, because you're like, it really is not just about what I'm doing, right? Like all those factors that you mentioned are all playing into this. So then it's like, well, what kind of, control like do we have? And the thing is, you're always going to be that path forward in how we navigate it. But yes, like that shame and guilt, while I can completely understand it, and I've been there and totally get it, it is really hard to move forward if you're blaming yourself for your dog's behavior. And if you can't put yourself in the mindset that you also are the path forward. And I know that seems like they're contradictory, but that's really, really important. And I honestly feel like sometimes it took owners several sessions or months to get to a point where they're like, okay, I can let this go. And then it was like so much easier to move forward. Because if you are feeling that shame and guilt, like every time there's a reaction, every time they bark at something, every time they snap at you, it's like the emotional response to that is extremely high, it seems like.
Well, you're viewing it as a personal failure.
You're
as opposed to information.
Right.
So if we accept that we're not responsible for every single thing about our dog, and we accept the fact that we don't know everything right now, right? I think there's a lot of pressure to, so I'm working with, if I'm working with somebody with, separation anxiety, for instance, and they just really feel like they're failing. They feel like they're personally failing. They feel like they're failing their dog. I'm like, why would you know how to work on this? But these are not like when we start getting into behavior stuff with dogs, like we don't learn about that stuff, right? You learn about that stuff because you have to, because you have a dog who has that, who needs that help, right? And I think, that can be uncomfortable, the not knowing.
Yes. And I think especially it's so easy to think like that because we're all sold this recipe for fixing the situation, which is just train your dog. Just teach them sit down, stay, come, place, heel, and drop it, and all your problems will be solved. Right? Absolutely. Like just train your dog. And those skills are helpful. I want to like emphasize that again. Those skills are super helpful. That's not a fix.
No.
For a lot of behavior issues. In truth, we may often be telling you to give those cues to your dog less.
Right.
Yeah.
Depending on the situation.
And the idea that what a good dog looks like. And the reality is, if we even just think about all the breed types, there isn't just one dog, right? So are we saying all dogs, regardless of type, have to act the same and be a good dog? Well, how is that even possible? If I have a Jack Russell Terrier and I have a Golden Retriever, they're not the same.
Yeah, I think it sort of diminishes their wholeness as like a whole unique being and individual. Just like saying like, just train your kids. Well, we can work with kids on how to sit at the table and how to, read and write and how to do. There's still a whole person under there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Right. And it's the same thing with our dogs.
And feelings. There's thoughts and feelings going on.
Yeah. And if there's like, if kids are having really big feelings, we're often going to say like, are you overtired? Are you overstimulated? Is there something in your environment that's stressful? Are you confused and you don't understand the situation right now? We're not just going to say, or hopefully we're not just going to say, get it together, sit with your hands together in that chair and don't you dare make a peep, regardless of how you feel.
Yeah.
And I'm not even saying, I think the hard thing with dogs is people love their dogs, like love their dogs. It's just that we've been sold that that's the solution.
Yeah, it is. And
right. It's not like we're trying to be harsh and mean and saying, I don't care about your feelings.
100%.
We're saying you have these feelings and how I'm going to fix them is with obedience training.
Yeah.
I know we're getting a little off topic, but like, I feel like that's an important point for folks to make is that your path forward, don't feel guilty that folks, and I know this is something we're going to talk about a little bit, like a lot of times the advice or feedback you'll be getting from family or friends or strangers is just train your dog already.
Yeah.
Right. Like you just need to train them to do this better and they'll be fine.
Yeah.
And that's often just not true. I think it's just it's often one piece of the puzzle.
It's one piece.
Right. It's like if a behaviorally healthy dog skill development's really important. So is relationships, so is environment, so is their overall health and well-being. So I think as long as people just know it's that being your whole solution is just often not the case. But
Right.
I think it's a really important point to drive home is like, I love teaching skills. They're super helpful.
Yeah. I like teaching
super
them too.
helpful. Just how and when we use them is going to vary a lot by dog, and what other elements of a intervention plan are going to be included or something to consider as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think basically kind of what you were saying was you kind of need to get off the struggle bus to make that happen, right? Like we need to not be struggling personally and get curious. And we need to get our dog in a more balanced place. So if we do decide skill training is the way to go, they're not learning anything while they're struggling, right? So we need to get them kind of like in a place where that can happen, and then we can move forward, right?
Yes.
So being on the struggle bus in and of itself feels like crisis, right?
Yeah.
So let's step away. Let's acknowledge our crisis. Let's step away from it and gather information.
Yeah. Well, I like
curious.
that point. It's sort of that whole, like, you can't learn to swim when you're drowning.
Yes.
Right. So like if you're on the struggle bus, yes, we don't try to train our way through like the height of being on the struggle bus. We try to adjust things so that like we can teach our dog the skills that they need to learn when they're not faced with whatever the triggers or situations are that they find really concerning, and make adjustments along the way so that when they're presented with those challenging situations, again, they and we have a lot more tools already in place to deal with it. What would you say to folks who are like, well, you're telling me it's not my fault, but the reality is like, my dog's great with my dog walker, or my dog's great when he goes to visit my dad for 2 days or my mom for 2 days. Those situations where the dog might behave differently with people who aren't the primary caretaker. How would you respond to people in that situation? Maybe have that question.
Well, I think for me, the reason why a dog can be more reactive or aggressive or have these behaviors with their owner versus like when they're with other people is because that primary relationship, like it's complicated. Like you're every single day when you get up, it's like, yeah, like you're feeding them breakfast and then like the mailman comes and you have to put them away, or like, it's like all throughout the day, like that relationship is just, it can feel more complicated. And that's the way I generally frame it to clients. It's like the relationship with your dog is more complicated. There's more emotional baggage for both of you with that relationship, just like with anyone we have a close relationship with. Hopefully it's mostly good baggage, but that can change things and change the way that your dog actually behaves. And I do think that's important for people to realize that if your dog is behaving differently with other people than with you, and the dog seems worse with you, honestly, for me, like it's usually not anything particular that owner is doing. It's just the result of like having a really close relationship with another being.
Totally.
And that if that dog lived with one of those other people for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 1 month, 2 months, they very well might see those issues come out. And I would say for a lot of dogs, like they probably would see those issues come out. And so, but it's hard because it's really easy and it seems very logical to sort of blame yourself, for what's going on, because like, hey, like you're the only person that's happening with. And it's just, we see it all the time. So if anyone's out there and they're actually dealing with that, like it's pretty normal. I think it's just a complicated relationship, and it's just the nature of it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that's that explanation I find, or that reason I find especially true for those situations where the dog has like sort of a really shallow, like one note relationship with those other individuals, right? The walker, like I go on walks with the dog walker. That's not nearly as complicated or complex as the relationship with the owner, or I visit my Grampy for a weekend, at a time. And it's just this like it's just a lot more of a shallow relationship. I don't mean that in a bad way. It can still be very positive. Right. It's a different, there's less there in terms of the complexity. So I feel like that's different. And I think probably sometimes, and I don't know that this is a terribly well researched area, but given the level of relationships that we have with our dogs and that they are, dependent family members, I would have to assume that some of the time there's also some like secure base effect going on with dogs
Totally.
and their secure attachment styles. And they're like, hey, I'm with my mom. I feel good. Like if I'm upset, I'm comfortable letting my feelings out.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Versus if I'm with someone I don't know, I'm going to be a lot more inhibited because I'm not sure how they're going to react. I'm not sure how the people around me are going to react. I know my mom's keeping me forever. Like she loves me no matter what I do. So I feel like some of that can be a sign truth that not always, but that you might actually have a really healthy relationship with your dog. And they're not telling you explicitly, like in their mind, but like their behavior is telling us that they need help with something else.
Yeah, because you don't know where conflict can come from. And I think a lot of social animals are like that, right? It's like there's risk to acting that way. And if you don't know how someone else is going to react back, you might be more likely to be inhibited. Like
Absolutely.
you said.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I would say those are some things to keep in mind. I do think there are also times, especially where there's like, two primary caretakers and the dog is very different with one person versus the other. And they're both doing what from the outside would feel like similar things. I do think there can be times where just because we're all individuals as well, where like there can just be certain types of personalities and interaction styles that line up together better, like can be a better fit. So you might have a dog who has like personality traits and tendencies that just don't naturally mesh super well with your own. And again, I don't think it's not that you're even doing anything wrong. I think that's that example again of like you could have 9 other dogs and do the exact same thing and have 9 other different outcomes. Mm-hmm. So if there are sometimes situations where we're like, hey, you're not doing anything wrong. Based on your unique individual dog, here are some things we're going to tweak in your interactions with them to help things move forward and get to a better spot. So I just want to make sure like that can be the case sometimes. This is just an issue sometimes of fit for like natural tendencies. And then it's often just little tweaks in like how we're interacting with them. Maybe it's like even just simple things like how we're petting them or how we're approaching them that like, there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I think, so maybe like any last words for folks? I think the other thing we've touched on a lot as well is about dealing with sort of comments and advice from friends, family, well-intentioned strangers. Like what advice maybe do we have for people about how to, because assuming most of the time these are people you're going to want to continue interacting with and having a relationship on an ongoing basis, like how do you set clear boundaries kindly? How do you deal with those comments and advice in a way that's, productive, I guess?
Yeah.
For you and your dog?
Well, I always talk to clients about there are 2 different types of people in your life. There are the people who will actually, if you have a conversation about your dog and what they're going through and what you're working on, will understand you and hopefully will almost like be a partner in helping things like move forward.
I would say they might not even understand you, but they'll support you.
Exactly. And maybe they don't even have to understand you, but they'll support you. They'll say like when you come over, like whether it's like ignore the dog or I'm going to put the dog away, and they're not like constantly asking, oh, like where's Fluffy? I want to see them. It's like, well,
you're
like,
so mean for putting.
You're so
away.
mean. Well, it's like, well, you're being a jerk. So you know what I mean? Like, but so like, so if you have people who support you, then I think it's up to them if they want to understand more, but they really don't have to understand more as long as they're sort of following your lead and following your direction. The people who are sort of make like really obnoxious comments have zero curiosity about what's going on. And frankly, I think are really harmful to the actual progress of the dog. Like whenever possible, like the dog doesn't interact with that person anymore because it's not worth fighting. Because if they're not a person who wants to work with you and understand you, like they're not going to take the time to be in a position to actually help you move forward. And they're probably only going to make it worse. And so maybe that's a bad outcome and maybe that's not what other people do. But I sort of divide, because then it's just like, then at least you can just tell people, hey, like I'm working on stuff. I'm just putting whoever away, and like they're just not going to interact anymore. And if people really want to interact with the dog, they have to move themselves into that other camp where like they can at least understand or at least support you along your journey, or maybe help understand. And for like there have been cases where we've had, friends or family actually like maybe join a session, or they do a course or they do whatever. And like they can actually gather some additional information to help move it along the way. But I sort of got to a point in my career where like, I don't want to fight battles with people who have absolutely no interest in learning anything new or being in a position to actually help the dog and help the owner because they have their own preconceived notions about like what should happen or what should be done.
And I think, I hear you on that piece as well. And I think maybe the message there or what's important is, set really clear boundaries with those individuals about what will be happening for you and your dog, and perhaps resist the urge, if there's not a lot of openness there, to try to convince them why you're doing it or that what you're doing is most appropriate. Hey, when you come over, I'll be putting Fluffy in the back room. She'll be staying there for the duration of the visit because she's not comfortable around strangers.
End of story.
Right. Or if you're bringing them somewhere, hey, I'm bringing Fluffy over. I'm going to keep her in the backyard. I can't have anyone go out to interact with her. If it's like a family home and the backyard's available or something like that. If anyone persists in trying to go out to the backyard to interact with her, we'll have to leave.
Yeah.
Right. Just sort of like short to the point. These are my boundaries for me and my dog. And this is what will happen if people can't adhere to them.
Yeah.
And you can be really clear and kind in how you say that, but maybe resisting the urge to like make a convert out of someone who truly is not interested in understanding what's happening.
And I know like I definitely go into mama bear mode for my clients when they have friends and family giving them a hard time, because it really hurts the person with the dog. Like it puts so much, like they're already working on something that's so hard, right, to move forward. And you're just putting, and you're just putting this whole extra complicated layer over everything for no good reason. Mm-hmm. But I told you how I really feel.
I'm glad you did. I hear you. It's complicated, but I think that's probably the best we can do, is to just set really nice, clear boundaries and stick to them. Yeah. For your sake and your dog's sake, and try to remember and root yourself in, you are doing what is best for you and your dog.
Yes.
Right. End of story.
Yeah.
And you can still nurture those human relationships in a different way. Your dog just might not be part of the picture.
Exactly.
For those interactions.
Yep.
And that's okay.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Now, battle not worth fighting. Yeah. Because you're probably not going to win.
Yeah. So, so kind of summarizing, it's probably one of the questions in people's mind is, so can I get off the struggle bus? Or how do I get off the struggle bus?
Yeah. Well, you can, because we see it all the time.
Yes.
And it's really, like we said, resist the urge to get control, get curious about your dog, let go of the guilt, seek help if you need to do that, and understanding that as your progress is almost always going to be 2 steps forward, 1 step back, sometimes 3 steps forward, 4 steps back, but we should see a trend line moving in a direction over the course of weeks for sure. And if you're not, then you have that conversation with whoever you're getting help with, or maybe you reach out for help so that you can adjust and keep moving things forward. Make sure the people in your life are actually supporting you getting off the struggle bus and aren't trying to jam the door closed on you, right? So make sure you have the right people there. And also know that sometimes you can get off the struggle bus for a little while and you could end up back on it again. And then you'll do the same thing, get curious, get help, whatever. But it's I want people to leave this like with hope that, like, because we see it all the time with thousands and thousands of dogs and owners every year, it's like you can get to a much, much better place. And if you can be flexible in what that's going to look like and try to get to a place where it's good for you, it's good for your dog, knowing that it might not look exactly the way you wanted it to look, but it still can be very beautiful. That's what I would want people to know.
Yeah. I think that's really well said. It's that whole, like, life doesn't have to be perfect to be wonderful.
Right.
Yeah. And things can almost always get better. And I think if you focus on every day, just like, how do I make things better a week from now or a month from now? How do I make things a little better a week or a month after that? And just sort of plug forward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we see it all the time. I mean, dog owners accomplish like amazing things every single day with their dogs. Whether it's a puppy or whether it's like a dog dealing with some pretty significant fear, aggression, or anxiety issues, like almost always things get a whole lot better.
Yeah. And I am eternally grateful doing this for a living and actually seeing what people think is impossible and accomplishing it.
Mm-hmm.
Like it makes you feel so good to see people do that and knowing that people can get there. And I think it's, for anyone out there who doesn't know if they can move forward, again, the vast majority of the time things can get better.
Agreed.
Cool.
I think that brings us to a close. So I hope everyone found some of this information helpful. And I think the biggest thing to know, again, you are not alone. There are lots of other people on the struggle bus, regardless of what their Instagram feed looks like, with really cute photos of their dog.
Mm-hmm.
So hang in there, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.